I'm more impressed by the individual who is able to simplify and share concise content that is packed and deep in one area, rather than someone who's sharing long pieces of content that are talking about a bunch of things or it's just a lot of fluff. So we see fluff all over the place. We see it in the words that we speak, in the content that we create, even in our wardrobe and the clothes that we wear, or even in the friends that we are connected with. And so the question is, how can we do less but better in all areas of our life? Even with your friends, for example, like, would you rather have 3 to 4 quality, deep connections with friends, or would you prefer to have like 15 to 20 friends that you're not really connected to? Because at the end of the day, what do we all want? We want purpose, contribution, connection. And this comes from focusing on the 80-20 rule, the 20% of the work that yields 80% of the results. In so many different areas of my life, I have noticed that I'm focused on the work that does not actually yield results. And so we need to remind ourselves constantly in the decisions we make, words we say, and the work that we do, like, what are the actual things that will move the needle or that will have results? I used to spend a lot of time editing videos focused on like the most minuscule changes and making minor tweaks and adjustments. And this did not ultimately yield a better video overall. Because if I were to put my time onto things that actually really helped the video, like a better idea or a better title, then I would have still been working, but on the fundamentals that actually yield better results. Like, it's much more comfortable if you're in the flow of working on your logo and making like the most minor adjustments. It's much more comfortable to just continue doing that. And it takes a bit of a sacrifice to pause and say, like, hold on, is tweaking this very minor adjustment to my logo really going to help me and other people and the world? Or is it simply a comfortable activity that I am just finding myself enjoying right now? And so when we take this pause and like go back to something that would actually move the needle for us, it can be difficult. And then the second thing that's involved is sometimes, for example, I have written a post and I liked what I said and I wanted to share this written post to social media and I was excited to do so. And so when I was writing the post, I would have a lot to say. And I noticed that I was touching on like 5 different subjects and referencing like 4 stories, all in the same post. And that part was easier. The part that was harder for me was getting rid of the storylines, of the parts that I liked but did not genuinely contribute to the core message of what I was trying to communicate. And I liked what I had written, right? Like I thought it was creative and I thought it was high quality. I didn't want to delete it. And in order to do less but better, in order to genuinely contribute a better piece of content to the internet, I had to kill these creative babies. This is not as comfortable as just like writing more. And when you look at your wardrobe, there are going to be clothes that you have this like emotional attachment to because maybe you have history to it, or you think, oh, one day I might want to wear that. And so it's hard to just clear it out and get rid of that piece of clothing. But if we genuinely want to do less but better, it's going to involve like asking the harder questions. Like, if I didn't have a history with this, if I wasn't the one who created this piece of clothing, would I still wear it? And that's a harder question because it takes you out of it and helps you access a strong conclusion that is not based off of your subjective bias. This gives you so much freedom when you don't have a history with things, because you can think like, what would I love to do? What would I love to actually spend my time on? But if you're labeling yourself with all this history of like, oh, but I'm a writer, or I'm like a therapist, or I'm a life coach or something, then you don't have freedom because you have to stay in the history and story of what that label means. So to do less but better, we need to get rid of the pieces of clothing that we have a history with, and we have to get rid of the labels that we have been identified with for a long time, or we have to get rid of those words that we wrote in the post that we really don't want to delete, or we have to get rid of those friendships that aren't genuinely serving us. and we're spending time on them just to water weeds that we don't even care about. But this is what is involved with doing less but better. It means identifying the 20% of the work that will yield 80% of the results. And as a result, this means more simplicity and it means more repetition. And that is okay, because that is where you get contribution. When you are in depth, when you are accessing quality, yes, this can be seen as boring on the surface level because you're essentially doing a lot of the same task or connecting with the same people like over and over. But this is tremendously more ideal because you're accessing the thing that you actually want. What is the thing you actually want? It is connection. It is purpose. It is a state of flow, concentration, and focus. And shiny object syndrome and trying a bunch of things at once on a shallow level does not let you access a sense of deep contribution. And so some people might say, but Jack, what if this means that people don't like me and I have to say no? Like, it's hard to say no to people and not support all of these different projects that I want to do and friends that I have. Like, yes, it is more difficult to say no to such things. But that's just in the short term. And what you'll notice is that people actually start to respect you more because you respect someone who respects their own self. For example, I was on a call with my business partner and I had this concept that I just felt like explaining. We were having a conversation where we needed to talk about something in specific, and I noticed that I just wanted to talk about this random concept and explain it. And so I did my thing, and I'm rambling, and I finally finish. And then he looks at me and he says, Jack, what is the point of what you just said? Why are we having this conversation? And then I subsequently bathed in awkward silence because I did not have a good answer to his question. And when we do less but better, we got to get to the point. Now, this is not to say there's not a time to just have a fun, spontaneous conversation where you're talking about things. That's also productive, but it depends on what productive looks like for you in the moment. And I think you get my point that sometimes we just like engaging with the fluff, even though it's not in service of our own self and with other people. And so how do you think I responded to my friend when he said this to me? I actually appreciated it. I respected him more because he was focused on having a high contribution. And he respected his time and him and his self. And I'd rather be around someone who respects their own time and their own energy than someone who just is a yes person and will talk about fluff and engage with all these different things because they're not able to actually put in a good level of quality when they're doing all of those things and constantly saying yes to things or continuing a fluffy conversation that they don't even want to genuinely contribute to, but they're too scared to say no. Less but better, 80-20 rule, quality, depth, connection, purpose, contribution. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. And if you want to connect with me and my business partner, then we have a link to our community. The link is in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day.